How is it going? Hope everyone's doing well, and thank you for tuning in this video. Today I'm here with my fourth installment in the return of The Undertaker, The Last Ride. Today I'm here to review Chapter 4, The Battle Within. The series took a few week hiatus, but of course is now back, and this Sunday is a finale. Chapter 5 is the finale of the series. Chapter 4 aired this past Sunday, the 14th. And yeah, of course this video is my rundown of it. Without wasting more time, let's go ahead and jump right into things. Now Chapter 4 immediately hopped right into things, immediately following Chapter 3 after the Saudi Arabia match with DX. Right away, they're talking about disappointment in the match, and you have Shawn Michaels talking about how he missed, Undertaker and Kane off of his moonsault, and everyone's pretty much just shitting on the match, saying how much of a disaster it was, and Undertaker talked about how he lost his confidence after that match. He had pretty much no confidence, which is one of the reasons why he didn't work WrestleMania 35. He just felt like he had nothing going for him, and he just had nothing else to show, and it really hurt him a lot, and it really fucked with him mentally, and it took a toll on him. And then out of the blue, they kind of touched on the relationship with Paul Bearer. They kind of talked about how him and Paul Bearer just went hand in hand, perfectly together, and their characters, they're perfect at being their characters. And it talked about Undertaker stayed committed to the character 24/7. He was the Undertaker. He wasn't Mark Calloway, even out in public or anywhere else. He always wore black. He tried to be the Undertaker. He was never himself outside of the ring. So they talked about his dedication to the character, and how he tried to keep everything kayfabe. Then of course towards the last couple of years or so, he's been letting more loose and letting more people in terms of him being Mark Calloway, in terms of him having a social media like Instagram and Twitter. Like, who the fuck would have thought the Undertaker would have Instagram and Twitter? Like, that's just absolutely crazy to say. And of course they touched on the subject of Starrcast 2 last year. Undertaker was supposed to do Starrcast 2 in Las Vegas during Double or Nothing weekend, but then they talked about Undertaker, Vince calling him saying, "What the fuck are you doing?" pretty much. And they actually got into a heated argument where they actually had a falling out for a bit. So that was really interesting to see how that really fucked with their relationship. And Undertaker claimed that he didn't know the relationship between Starrcast and AEW at the time. He just saw it as an opportunity to do a signing. That's all he knew about it was. It was just a signing. He didn't know it fell onto AEW's biggest weekend, of course. So he didn't really know what he got himself into, and that led to a huge blowout with him and Vince. And it talked about him going to WrestleMania 35, which was a weird experience for him to sit it out willingly. It was the first Mania where he pretty much missed not due to injury, and it was weird for him to set it out. But it was cool to see him go to Access. It showed him and Michelle McCool taking their daughter around Access, seeing all the cool stuff like Michelle McCool's old women's championships and whatnot. So it was really cool look at seeing family time and really seeing more of Mark Calloway than the Undertaker. So one thing about this episode I will say as well is that the just the footage, the backstage footage was fantastic. Whether it's Undertaker, walk around with his daughter, interacting with people, or him interacting with Vince, which the banter him and Vince had was fantastic. Vince and Undertaker need their own show just for their banter. I can watch those two all day fuck with each other. It's always a highlight of each episode, if you ask me. But yeah, this episode definitely, in terms of just a backstage look, this has been the best one by far. But yeah, it was really heartwarming to see, family time and more, like I said, Mark Calloway than the Undertaker. And then infamous fucking Vince. He asked Taker, he's like, "So you want to do something for Raw?" And Taker goes, "Well, I don't have my gear." So Vince, well, he doesn't make him, but he kind of does, makes Taker fly back to Texas to get his gear and go back. So that was a whole bit of Undertaker having to fly back from New York to Texas to go home to get his gear and go back to New York just so he can have his stuff for Raw. Michelle McCool's getting him shit for it because he, what kind of rookie mistake is it? You don't show up, who shows up with other gear, even if they're not booked? You always show up with their gear. So that was a pretty funny moment of Taker getting shit on for that. But obviously he did his Raw appearance with Elias, chokes him Elias. So that was cool. And then talked about a few weeks later how he got a text from Triple H asking if he wanted to work Goldberg, and he pretty much said why not. It's a person he's ever worked with, and he was all for it. Then it was a backstage look at the Raw in Austin. That was leading into the Goldberg match. Then obviously they touched up on the Goldberg match, which Obviously went about as terrible as it could have went. Undertaker, he didn't tear Goldberg in the shreds. He actually didn't blame Goldberg at all. Goldberg got concussed pretty much immediately early on, so Taker pretty much blamed that on how the match went. But yeah, everyone knows the match is terrible. Taker almost got killed when Goldberg nearly broke his neck on the jackhammer that turned into a brainbuster. Michelle McCool obviously talked about it, but honestly, I'll say this: Michelle McCool and Undertaker weren't, I don't know, I guess as aggressive about the situation as I'd expect. Like I thought, just especially Michelle McCool would be kind of livid about it, but they were very calm and very understanding about the elements that played into the factors, obviously their age and how they were their career at that stage in their career, and the concussion obviously it was a recipe to disaster to begin with, pretty much, and they kind of acknowledged that. So yeah, they didn't rip Goldberg a new one as much as I thought. I know Taker has respect for Goldberg, he's cool with him, but even people respect, if they fuck up, you got to call them out. And so I was kind of surprised they didn't do that. But Undertaker talks about after that match, he had a lot of self-doubts, and he wasn't really sure about why he kept going. He was kind of at the point where he was wondering, why the fuck am I still doing this? So, that match with Goldberg really put him in perspective. And, he already agreed to do the tag match at Extreme Rules, so he didn't want to pull out of that, even though he was hurt. He was hurting, his back was hurting because of the match, because he got dropped on his fucking neck. So, he was hurting, but he still did the Extreme Rules match with Roman Reigns. And, he had a great performance in that match. He looked great, even to the point where Vince said, you look great. You look like you're not finished to me. And, Taker talked about how, adjusting to life without wrestling. One of the big reasons I think he thought he kept going back is because that's what he knows. That's what he's been doing the last 30 years under Vince McMahon. He's been in the business for the past 35 years. So it's all he's done, and letting go of something that you've done for 35 years, I can only imagine how hard that would be. So but obviously time's catching up to him, his body, and he can't keep having close calls like he did with Goldberg. And that kind of set with him. And, after the match at Extreme Rules, he straight up told Vince, and there's this footage, they show it in the documentary, he tells Vince, hey, I'm done. And that's it, I'm done. And, Vince told him, like, oh, you didn't look done out there tonight. And, Taker pretty much was like, Vince, come on. And then, obviously, Vince was like, we'll talk about it later. We'll discuss, about your future and whatnot later on. So, yeah, Taker pretty much told Vince right after the Extreme Rules match he was done. So, that was pretty surreal to see that, because I don't recall ever hearing that ever even happened. So that was very interesting, at least to me, to see that happen. And then after Taker pretty much quote unquote retired to Vince after the match, they show a clip of Taker talking to AJ, and him and AJ are walking off, and Taker tells the camera crew to, hey, stop, we're gonna talk in private for a minute. And that's where the episode ends. It cuts off immediately right there with the Undertaker discussing with AJ after his match at Extreme Rules. And obviously, that's a huge cliffhanger, because obviously we know what happened with those two down the line. WrestleMania this past year, they had a match, the Boneyard match, obviously. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see the finale. Obviously, my prediction has been from the get-go that I think the end game of this documentary is that the Undertaker will announce his retirement. And the next episode is called Revelation, and obviously the course of the last few episodes always talked about is how he should be done. He even said in the documentary that there's times where he wished that after the match with Shawn at WrestleMania 26 he would have went with him, and there'd be times where you see Shawn and say, hey man, I should have went with you when you went. I should have went with you. So I truly believe the end goal, I can't even speak right now. The end goal of this documentary is Undertaker to announce his retirement. I truly do believe that. And obviously, we'll get the answer to see if that's the case this Sunday. But yeah, Chapter 4, The Battle Within. Great episode. Like I said, backstage looks, you got a lot of great stuff. You got a lot of reflection from The Undertaker. You got a lot of information as well. Like I said, the stuff like him retiring to Vince after Extreme Rules that I never even heard about. So I thought it was a very newsworthy and eventful episode, and definitely was a great setup to the finale. And I'm very excited for Chapter 5 this Sunday. The finale, like I said, Revelation. Will The Undertaker announce his retirement? Who knows? We'll see, obviously, this Sunday. And I can't wait to discuss with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, please feel free to leave a like below. And of course, until next time, I'll see you guys, and thank you guys for watching the video.